I've mentioned it before, and I'm going to mention it again. There's something crazy about looking at our girl who started up as a normal kid on the surface, who in season 1, and you might be able to even argue in the movie, Riko never really felt like she belonged in the Abyss, so a lot of the criticisms towards her character because she didn't make the right decision, well, of course not. She's a kid who didn't grow up in the Abyss. But with season 2, something's truly snapped in her mind, and there's always been signs of it. There's always been signs that she can fit in the Abyss. It's just, obviously, with where she started to where she is now, it's completely night and day, and there's been a journey. But to see how she's just able to smile and feel happy about the people she's met, the chaos she's experienced. There's something truly broken about her, and it's no surprise. I'm not saying this as a criticism. I'm saying it if you've been in the Abyss long enough and you've gotten to close to the bottom of it, you ain't gonna be normal. Whether you look like a monster like some of these characters, or you look like a smiling girl who can literally smile, say, you know what, I'm happy this village existed after learning the chaos that's happened. I think if you really break down her character, she's probably the character who's developed the most, but in the most subtle way. But when you take a step back, it's truly messed up just how much the Abyss has truly corrupted her, as it corrupts anyone who stays in there long enough. Obviously, normal people can't exist if you're going to be down there, and to see how every character breaks in their own way is truly thought-provoking. But for a double-length episode, we had to wait a week to get the final episode, which was an official double episode, not one of those, oh, it's extra long, but it's really only 5 minutes. No, this was literally 2 episodes in one, and I thought the way that was gonna go was like maybe the first 20 minutes would be like the end resolve of whatever happens, and then it'd mostly be epilogue after, but no, there was still so much left to tell. Wasn't expecting flashbacks to finish up the whole FAPTA stuff, but that was definitely welcomed and a little kind of tugged on your heartstrings a little bit. But to see the overall sacrifice of the village because this girl needed to not only gain those memories of her mother to get the full picture, but most importantly, in order to deal with the chaos that's in front of her, there's no way for her to do it on her own power level, basically. But the willing sacrifice of the villagers because she literally called out for help. It's not something like in the prior episodes where she was ripping them to shreds, and it felt more just angered, more hateful. This time it felt more like there was a mutual agreement, and this episode is probably best summed up as probably bittersweet. Like, on one hand, there's an element of hope that this girl will be able to no longer live in constant rage and sorrow, but potentially find a better life. I mean, the Abyss, it only offers so much, but still better than where she's been for sure. On the other hand, it also ended in a lot of death, so it's a kind of 50-50 where on one hand you see it as a hopeful, on the other hand you see it as complete bloody chaos. I mean, we see our girl melted and face being just, it's as if like melted cheese, it's just kind of crumbling down, and it is disgustingly beautiful. But holy shit, like, to see the difference in her character with where we started her out. Hell, I love the fact that they tie back to the first moment that really kind of made my eyebrows raise a bit, was when they were sleeping and the hair got stolen and it was sewn into an animal's ass. It was just like, what are we looking at here? Like, this is some messed up shit. But to see it from the other perspective, and how she really felt like an innocent person and all that, but more so just didn't understand social etiquette, and just in doing so, we ended up in the situation we got, right? But to see how different it is in the parting scene there, I actually thought she was going to officially join at the end of the episode, like they were going to all start traveling together. I was kind of excited for that, for the potential of more Made in the Abyss anime and obviously having them all together. But I think given her how much of an animal she started out, the flashback more or less shows us that. I mean, she literally was rubbing her scent on best robot over here, Mr. Big Daddy. And it's just interesting to see how much more alive she feels, how much more of a person she feels like, but at this stage, she couldn't really travel with them, right? There's still so much she needs to learn about who she is as a person, not this rage, sorrow-filled killing machine, but experience the Abyss before probably coming back together with the three here. And I think that works really well as an ending, and if you really look at not only just this episode, but the season as a whole, for me, it just feels like peak anime. Exactly what I would consider to be, if I'm making a list or I'm recommending people shows that I consider to be the best of the best that this medium has to offer, Made in the Abyss, I mean, ever since the movie, I would probably have recommended that. It's just, with what I just saw with season 2, it definitely cements itself in that category for me. Obviously, anytime you say something's peak anime or peak whatever, there's always going to be those people who will type on their keyboards aggressively being like, no, you're wrong because blah, blah, blah. It's all opinion. There's no there's no 100% everyone's gonna agree on what's the best thing ever, right? It's all fiction. It's all media that we enjoy or dislike. But for me, exactly what I love about it, the directing, and it's not even just the visual directing, which it's self-explanatory, the way they incorporate 3D with 2D and just the aggressiveness of this season, the way they brutally kill, but it never felt like Edge, like that's self-explanatory why that's great. But Kevin Penkin, man, and the voice actors and the music directing, the way it just eats away at such a complex atmosphere that I think in any other studio, any other music director's hands, it would have been a lot more in your face with the emotion. But honestly, if you take a look at a lot of the OST tracks that we heard this season, you honestly feel like it's not as hopeless as most studios would make it out to be. I think I've made the comparison before. I think it was earlier in the videos, but anyone who's played Death Stranding, the way music is used in that game in terms of just, it's not often, but when it's there, it just sells the atmosphere. That's exactly how the soundtrack in Made in the Abyss is used. And I think that's what makes the moments in this episode so powerful, is that most of the time when I feel like I'm in pain or I feel like I'm really connected in an emotional way, it's not because of visually grotesque things happening or characters dying, but more so, it's just the complex atmosphere of when people don't say things and just the way they'll zoom or pan or zoom and do all these different directing techniques as the music will more or less tell the story as these subtle cues from the voice actors hit you right in the feels. I mean, look at the scene when she's climbing the stairs and just so tragically romantic, just grabbing and throwing as she then disintegrates in front of her. Like, that had barely any words, but just the sound effects from the hitting of the stairs to the music and just everything else in between, it just hits you right where it needs to. And a lot of studios, I feel like, would oversell that scene where sometimes less can be more, and I think that's more or less what this show has been. Yes, there's been a lot of visually grotesque things this season, but it never feels like it's ever trying to one-up itself, or it's never trying to feel like that's the reason you're talking about an episode. Don't get me wrong, it's shocking and will get people talking, but most people who continue to discuss an episode of Made in the Abyss is not doing so just for that visual. It may be the starting point of the conversation, but it's more about the journey. And I think Fapta, for a character who started out so weird to me, someone who I wasn't sure what to feel about this, has quickly risen to being one of my favorite characters that they have shown in this show. And I'm so glad there's potential to see her again someday after her world has truly been opened up. And rather than it just feeling like she switched magically because of these memories, it feels like she, rather than just being pure hate and rage or pure I understand I was wrong, it just kind of came to a middle ground, right? Where she sees the error in her ways, but also can't deny the shit that she's went through and what her mother went through. But she sees it from both sides, allowing for her to start feeling more like a person rather than a caged-in animal who knows nothing but pain and hate. Absolutely a 10 out of 10 season, if you ask me. I've had so many people in my comment section writing essays themselves being like, this is my favorite content in the manga, it's my favorite content I'm probably watching this year. And I completely agree. And obviously everyone will have a different opinion, and I'll love to read everyone's opinion, whether you were okay with the season, didn't like the season, or absolutely agree with me that it was a masterpiece of a season. So do let me know what you're feeling down below. Obviously we'll have to wait for the next movie or season, whatever they decide to do eventually someday. It's only a matter of time. I don't think we have to worry if it's going to get more. It's just a matter of time depending on how much source material's out there, what the studios got involved with. So I don't think we have to cross our fingers. We know we'll get it someday. So thoughts and feelings down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.